Good evening and welcome to the Gold Goats and Guns Hour here on YouTube and DLive. My name is Tom Luongo. It is Monday, Veterans Day, November 11, 2019. Sorry guys, I'm a little late, but I almost didn't make it to the live stream tonight, to be honest with you. I haven't been feeling very good today. So I didn't even shave. Damn, dude. All right, whatever. You look like ass. You look like death warmed over. You're gonna do it anyway. Okay, I got coffee. We've got a topic, we've got a thing, we're going to talk about it. Tonight, we're going to talk about Nigel Farage and his quote-unquote Brexit alliance, and whether or not he has betrayed or saved Brexit. I think it's a good question to ask today. I wrote an article about it this morning right after he made that announcement over at my blog at tomluongo.me. You can follow me on Twitter at TFL1728. You can follow me, you can support me on Patreon at Patreon/GoldGoatsAndGuns, where you can get either access to either or both the twice weekly video market reports, where I go over not only the news of the week, but also relevant, important markets and markets that you might be interested in yourself if you're interested in having my opinion given to you on them. We do chart analysis, we do technical analysis, and we do, more of what we do here, except it's a private and exclusive. And as well, we also do the monthly Gold, Goats, and Guns investment newsletter, where we tie all this stuff up into a coherent portfolio strategy to help you make sense of the world going completely insane. So, with that said, and lastly, all of those links are down below. My name right there. If you go look down, you'll see everything available to you, and you can donate to the channel via crypto, PayPal, or however you want. I'm not proud. So there's that, and of course you can also truly support the channel and yourself and your privacy habits by downloading and installing the Brave browser, where you can staunch the flow of your personal data from going around the interwebs to be used for nefarious purposes, by blocking every tracker, ad script, you name it, and be paid to be forced to watch ads. Well, you're never forced to watch ads on Brave. You opt in and choose whether or not you want to watch the ad, and if you do, you get paid for it. So Brave gives you the revenue that Google is currently collecting. Reminder that this channel is not monetized because, well, fuck Google. I don't think I should be fattening their bottom line. They don't really fatten mine. They do everything they can to keep mine from getting fatter, so fuck them. And given their new terms of service, we may not be here much longer. It is what it is. All right. So, with that said, on with the show. I know, this is like, based Gen X night. I don't know what the hell. I don't give a shit. I'm not in a particularly great mood, so I'll probably lose audience tonight by the time I'm done. So only 57 minutes to go to get through this tonight. We'll see what happens. All right, let's talk about Brexit. Let's talk about Farage. So Farage comes out last week, beginning of the campaign season, and he says, I'm standing 620 people to stand people for in every constituency in the elections except for Northern Ireland. We're standing 600 candidates, whatever many it is, and everybody lost their mind. Mike Chedlock called his offer to Boris Johnson preposterous. He was lambasted in every corner of the British and European political circles as an egoist, as a guy who can't accept reality, as all of these things. This typical stuff. Nigel Farage has never been given an easy ride about anything the entire time, because he is completely and utterly hated by all those with any power at all in Britain, because he has forced open the question that no one wanted to force. No one ever wanted asked. Do these people actually want to live under the European Union? That's verboten as far as Angela Merkel is concerned. It's certainly verboten as far as Emmanuel Macron and the rest of, and certainly the rest of the European and American financiers and oligarchs who stand behind all of the politicians that we talk about on a daily basis. As far as they're concerned, the European Union is what's next, and it is their job, nay, their duty, to convince us all that that's inevitable, even if we don't like it, and drag us kicking and screaming into their dystopia. Well, Nigel Farage has spent 25 years again working against that. Anybody who thinks otherwise is an idiot. Just that simple. You don't work 25 years for that. And that's that. So, Farage, this morning, after doing that, but you can always tell when a guy has struck a nerve and has pissed off really important people when everybody's against you. When everybody's against you, you're doing good. When you're taking flack, you're over the target. So the minute I saw him do that, I knew exactly what he was doing. He was doing the Trumpian big ask thing. He was asking for as much out of Boris Johnson as he could possibly ask for, knowing full well he wasn't going to get it, knowing full well that the polls were not in a position, that the Brexit Party wasn't in a position to poll that way. He also gave it a week and a half to see if the polls would begin to shift his way, to see if the people were convinced enough by Johnson's dog and pony show, and to get feedback on the strategy for a week and a half, and to find out if it was going to be the right, if this was going to be the right strategy. And it turns out it was not going to be the right strategy. That the way everybody reacted to this, it was very obvious that Johnson's strategy to bring the ERG on board and to basically bribe them with cabinet positions and I think lie to them flat out about not keeping about the withdrawal agreement, about what his intentions are in terms of negotiating with the European Union. I think it was a very powerful one. I think it worked. I think it convinced a lot of Brexiteers to stay with Johnson and to not risk splitting the Leave vote against a Remain coalition that was becoming more and more strident. Now, if you don't think that the strident Remainiacs on the Lib Dems and the SNP and the Labour weren't also an establishment strategy in order to push through this withdrawal agreement, which everybody's happy with, but they can't say so for political reasons, like Labour can't say that for political reasons, okay? That when you understand that, once you realize that everybody's trying to push, is making the case to marginalize Farage, you realize that Farage is absolutely right about the withdrawal agreement. That the withdrawal agreement at this point is what is what they want. This is what they want. And so you push for that by marginalizing the guy who's saying, no, we don't have to do that anymore. And that's the point, I think, of all of this. So Farage very smartly, after a week and a half of this, taking slings and arrows from all corners and realizing that Johnson actually caved to him. Believe it or not. The way I wrote it up this morning, Johnson caved to Farage, and Farage then went out publicly and did what he needed to do. Now, Farage is saying there's no deal between us. Boris and the Tories would never admit to anything that they've actually negotiated a deal with us or anything else. They can't do that. They can't do it. Politically, the Tories can't do it. They won't do it. They're too much a bunch of establishment pricks to do that. That's who they are. I firmly believe that the ERG at this point, Tories first, everything else, Brexiteers second. They always have been, they always will be. It includes Jacob Rees-Mogg and the rest of them, all of them. Maybe a couple of them aren't. Maybe a couple of them are truly will put country before party, but I'm not seeing it at this point. And the ones who are probably been told to shut up. So the goal is for the Conservatives to destroy Brexit. That's their job. They will do it if they are given the choice. So Farage this morning said, look, here's the gig. We won't contest the 317 seats that the Tories won in 2017. We're not going to do it. And the reason we're not going to do it is because we can't have the Liberal Democrats and Labour win by mistake. So Farage has talked a little bit about the EU defense. He talks about it in very what's the word I'm looking for? general terms, EU army and all of that stuff. And he just knows that they think that's his talking point. That's his way of dealing with it and keeping the talking points as simple as possible. It's for his candidates to go out there and explain the details of what Theresa May and Boris Johnson are trying to sign them up for. Okay. But ultimately, I think what Farage did today was the right thing. His mind, you could watch it, and you can watch it. He's not happy about having to do this. He doesn't think this is the right thing to do. It's just the best thing to do. You understand the difference between those two things, right? That at the end of the day, this is what he has to do, even though he'd rather the situation was different. He'd rather reality was different than it is. Reality at this point is that Johnson has used Brexit exhaustion cynically to his advantage, and he's got the numbers at this point on his side. Now, the minute Farage does this, though, this is what happens. And I fundamentally believe, no, Farage is absolutely for leaving Liberty Cat. And what he's doing is he's giving the British voters, the Leave voters, a very clear signal. We're not going to contest here. Don't worry about us. You give the Tories those seats, and then you give us the seats in the Midlands and the Northeast. You give us 75 seats or so that we can hold Boris's feet to the fire. That's what you have to do. And if you do that, then Johnson won't be able to betray Brexit over the course of 2020. Now, the reason that I feel Johnson caved to Farage is because Johnson knows he can't win the 65 to 70 seats in the Midlands and the Northeast that haven't voted conservative in 100 years. These people would rather eat dirt than vote for the Tories. And he knows that. And the possibility it could have existed that they voted Lib Dem or they voted some other damn thing. All right. So he knows that, that he could get the conservative vote and his own people and his own voters, meaning get the people, the Labour voters who are willing to vote for him, and get some conservative, hardcore Brexiteers, and know that those two groups together could easily win a whole bunch of seats. And that is the optimal outcome. That's the optimal outcome. So the reason why I think that Johnson caves to Farage here is because Johnson comes out the night before and he says 3 things that are very important. 1, that he wants to go for that he's not willing to extend the transition period past 2020. Period. And the 2, which is the next deadline, effectively. 2, that they would negotiate some form of trade agreement around which Farage outlined in his original big ask to Johnson. He said, look, drop the withdrawal agreement, go for a Canada plus free trade deal. We'll trade under GATT 24 in the interim while we're negotiating it. Everything will be fine. That was his ask. That was a bridge too far because the withdrawal agreement is what's going to be on the table. But by saying that, by going back to point number 1, by saying that he's not going to extend, that Johnson's not going to extend the transition period beyond 2020, it leaves no deal on the table. But that's code for no deal is still an option here. This is why the ERG is saying this deal is still good. We still have the option of just walking away, but it's going to take us another year to do it. Fair enough. Second point is the Canada Plus free trade agreement. I don't know what all that actually means, and I don't really care. It's whatever the deal Canada has with the EU. If the Brits get something similar, it'll be a huge win. Okay, it'll be better than Norway. It'll be better than it'll be a big win. But most importantly, and as Nigel said, no one's talking about it, and because no one's talking about it, that's why it's the most important point, and that's why I think it's actually Johnson's dog whistle to Farage. Here's your unofficial alliance. No political alignment under that free trade agreement. That free trade agreement is going to come with no strings attached, Mr. Barnier. You can go fuck yourself. That's what Boris is offering. Does anybody believe him? It's true. No one believes him. And Farage, as a politician, has to hold Boris to account, has to be rude to him, has to play this up for all it's worth. That's his job. If he's not doing that, he's not campaigning well. So you know, you have to believe that that's the strategy here. The second thing, and now you take all three of those things together, and that gives Farage enough to campaign on and with voters. By Boris saying those three things, now Farage has got 3 points that he can actually campaign against Johnson on by saying, Johnson's promised these three things. Do you believe him? If you don't believe him, vote for us. If you want to make sure that those three things happen, vote for us here in the Midlands, here in the Northeast, because we're the ones who are going to ensure that he doesn't pull a Theresa May on us. And that's what they're going to campaign on. And that's a very powerful statement to a lot of Leave voters. Now, if this all works out, and a month from tomorrow, we're looking at a conservative government that needs the Brexit Party to form a coalition, to form a government, then hard Brexit is still on the table. Moreover, Farage sets himself up for the next general election as the guy who sweeps into Parliament and sweeps out the Tories and sweeps out Labour for the Conservatives having betrayed Brexit. Because he'll be able to go in and say, look, you didn't believe us about Boris. That's your fault. Now you have a chance to rectify that next election down the line. The story is not over. The story is, and it's a very easy sell from Nigel's perspective. And there isn't a more savvy political operator in Britain right now than Nigel Farage. People saying that he's egotistical or he's naive or he's this or that. No. He knows, he understands the order of operations and he understands what's happening. And he's not happy about all of these things. But this is reality. So, are the Tories still contesting those seats in the Midlands? Asked Jonathan. Most likely. They're not going to step down. But I did see at least 2 or 3 guys on Twitter in the first 2 hours this morning who, after Farage's announcement, who were Tory candidates were stepping down, by the way. So there are plenty of Tories who don't trust Boris either. Okay? And while there were a couple of Brexit guys who were pissed off and they're stepping down as well, it's like, because they think that Farage is selling them out, but what else is new? Now, there's going to be people that way. But he said overwhelmingly, I listened to his on the road thing today. He's like, overwhelmingly, 90% of the people came back to me and said, thank you. You did the right thing. We'll take it from here. And that's from the voters. I mean, he got applause today. So how many seats can they or will they win? I don't know. I'm thinking that they probably have upwards of, I don't think they're going to win less than 5 Mega Zeno. I think they'll easily win 25 or 30. Minimum. Maybe more. I think that Farage is still going to campaign that this deal sucks. And he's going to open up a lot of people's eyes about this. And he also looks incredibly magnanimous here. And he looks like the guy putting country before party. He's the one saying, no, Brexit is more important than my political. So, good. I hope. I film it, put it on YouTube. I want to see it. I think he'll win 25 to 30 seats minimum. I don't think it'll be 5. All right. 20 minutes in. I don't really want to talk about Brexit for much longer, and I'm not sure how long I'm going to go tonight, guys. I might not go the full 6. So, all right. Let's see what people have to say. Stoyanovich brings up the very interesting point, which he put up on my blog this afternoon, that Farage may not have the money or the people of the organization to run all 600 seats in each district. He's being a realist and frankly probably wasn't prepared. That's possible. But listen to Nigel say it. He says he is. That he can't. That they've got the money, they've got the people, they've got the organization, but I don't know. England's not that big. Running a national campaign in England is not nearly as hard as running a national campaign in the United States, which is nearly impossible. Jabba Soapbox says, look, Intel services have a ban on them talking about a defense union. It is considered separate to Brexit despite being integral to independence from the EU. That's a good point. I did not know that. So it has to that's interesting. That's why the guys behind the scenes have to talk about it. Okay, so DTF asks, so Tom, I know you often talk about Brexit, but for new viewers, please give a brief recap on why Brexit matters to the US and the world. Oh, that's very simple. The main reason why Brexit is important, DTF, and it's a good point to bring out. And as always, I kind of like to hit the ground running, knowing my audience is as well informed about these issues as I am. So I generally like to try and just hit the ground running with the new information as opposed to, covering the same ground twice, as Patton would put it. Why Brexit is important. Brexit is so very important because this is the thing that, there's two things, there's many things. Well, let's start with the two most important. One is to stop the EU cold in its tracks and to give the Eurosceptics around Europe, the ability to then fight back. And because every lost battle with the EU is a battle that the next country can win, because the EU is a monolithic new version of the Soviet Union that needs to be stopped. And it's even worse than the Soviet Union. It's a bureaucratic nightmare. And it's a vile, evil thing that needs to be consigned to the dustbin of history as one of the worst ideas ever conceived of. It is purely a plaything and a conception of the of heartless globalists who frankly hate the people that they rule. And it's so very obvious in the way in the rules that they put forth and the way they go about their business. The EU needs to be trashed. Secondly, the British deep state, the British political class, whatever you want to call them, the aristocracy in Britain, they need to be broken. They've been running the world, or some version of running the world, for an awfully long time, and they need to be broken as well. And Brexit runs counter to them, because who do you think are some of the main backers of the European Union in the first place? They're all in the fucking House of Lords, for Christ's sake. Okay, so that system needs to be torn down. And Brexit changes so very many things. It changes so many dynamics. It breaks the hold of the neoconservatives within the British establishment. It breaks the fucking control of the very virulent British Marxists who are neck deep in our State Department and our CIA in the United States and all over, and their intelligence services, which are all over the fucking world in the Middle East and screwing shit up. They're everywhere. They're like fucking virus. They're in Hong Kong, which I've gone over many times. Brexit changes a lot of that. Certainly changes it if at some point a populist government takes over, which is not going to happen this time around. This is why they hate Jeremy Corbyn, by the way. He's an outsider. They don't want Jeremy Corbyn. It's not because he's a Marxist. Brits have been ruled by Marxists, by some form of Marxist, since before World War II, for fuck's sake. It's British Marxism that has been the hallmark of post-World War II freaking foreign policy. That's not the problem. The problem is he's the wrong kind of Marxist. He's not ours. All right. The point, so I think that should tell you why it's so important. So if Britain can leave, then it gives a roadmap to how to beat Barnier when he goes to turn to Italy. Hungary, not that Hungary wants to leave the European Union. They're not going to leave anytime soon. But the Eurosceptic parties within, the Eurosceptic factions within the European Union, which want to resist further political union. They really just want a free trade. They really just want it to be a free trade area. They don't really want political unification. They certainly don't want fiscal unification. And certainly that's not going to happen as long as Viktor Orbán is in charge in Hungary. I can tell you that. But Jonathan asked, going back a while ago, Jonathan Gillespie asked, so if Brexit Party will stand out of the way of conservatives in conservative-held constituencies, will the Tories do the same and leave voting districts in Northern England? No, they won't. They're the conservatives. They're tribal. They're entitled. They're the oldest party. They're not going to do it. They're the big dog. It's what you're going to have to see happen is Johnson's not going to put money into those campaigns. You're going to have to see some of those candidates are going to step down, or they're going to stand aside, or they're going to behind the scenes say, no, go vote for the party guy. Come on, get ourselves here. Let's get this done. So, now, Sameja says the Brexit Party might not be able to break the Labour hold on the working class vote, but it will crack it enough to see Corbyn gone, and that will see a lot of people in expensive suits let out a sigh of relief. And that's not a good outcome. Farage has to believe in this five-way race that, first past the post, 25 to 30% will win an election. Okay? You don't have to get a plurality. There's no runoff here. So it's a single election. Whoever gets the most votes wins. You actually would prefer, I honestly prefer to have Corbyn in charge of Labour for as long as possible until Brexit's finished. Because as long as Corbyn's in charge of Labour, Corbyn is dragging his feet about Remain. Corbyn has only gone along with a second referendum because that's the only way he can keep Labour from turning into the outright Remain party. Okay, and politically he knows he can't get away. He knows that there's too many Labour voters who don't want that. So I actually think that Jeremy Corbyn is weak, and as weak as he is, and as bad a leader as he is, I also think that he's made of a little sterner stuff than people give him credit for. That he's actually trying to stop the globalists, the Blairites, from within the Labour Party, and that he's even been able to hold on to power all through 2019. As far as I'm concerned, is a fucking miracle. Because they've been gunning for him for a year now. I mean, hard with the anti-Semite thing, with Alistair Campbell, with this, that, with all this shit. And that he's been able to hold on to power with as many defections within the shadow cabinet as we've seen. That Corbyn's still standing gives him that plays well for him. That speaks well of him in terms of his ability to keep the troops on the straight and narrow. So Yanovich says, look, Farage, interestingly enough, wants to bring in a constitution to codify the British government structure and not make it vulnerable to the whims of majority governments. He absolutely wants to change politics from the ground up. He wants proportional representation in the House of Commons. He wants the House of Lords abolished and rebuilt. I mean, this is what they're campaigning on. They're not just campaigning on Brexit. They're campaigning on a hard constitution. If they're going to have fucking Supreme Courts, then they should have a Supreme Court that operates within the confines of a written constitution. He wants proportional representation. He wants a reforming of the postal vote system, the mail-in vote system. Horribly abused. So. Don Cherry was fired today? What, from HNIC? Hockey Night in Canada, for those of you who are uninitiated. Huh. Finally, well, poor Grapes. He was getting a little long in the tooth. I mean, how old is Grapes? Was he 80 years old? Did you want to talk about Tulsi Gabbard and John Jr. on The View? Do I want to talk about that? I think that's one of the great things that last week I wrote an article over the weekend, which, by the way, never becoming the grayed out, like what's the word I'm looking for? Like featured story on Zero Hedge, did 100,000 hits on, and it got picked up by everybody. Crazy. That story is a very important one. It is an important one. I don't know if I'm like overstating the case or anything that like the View has done, but I can tell you that a lot of people were deprogrammed last week thanks to Tulsi Gabbard and Donald Trump Jr. on the View, and I thought it was very interesting how they went about it and how they made Goldberg and Joy Behar and the rest. And by the way, we need to start using Behar as an adjective. That's very Behar of you, which is sick, pathetic, and sad. Which is what sick, venal, and pathetic, and stupid. Right? Venal, pathetic, and stupid. That's what Behar means. So that was very Behar of you. I want you to use that from here on out. It's my gift to you. So I don't need credit. It's my gift. Getting Joy Behar to scream at her audience. This isn't a MAGA rally. What? They're not allowed to have independent thought. They're not allowed to cheer Don Jr. on for saying what we're all thinking, which is that you're a fucking stupid harpy who works for Hillary Clinton. You cunt. I thought it was brilliant. I thought Gabbard acquitted herself beautifully. She absolutely is presidential material from the way she handles herself under pressure. She just kind of looked at them, commanding the room, and big smile on her face, going, "You guys are feeding me here. You guys are making this easy. This isn't a stress." I mean, Mandy Bomberg would say, "Oh, those are stress smiles, and she's hiding something." And shut the fuck up. Like, seriously. Like, stop being a cutard. Like, no, she's not. She's just winning. That's the smile of a woman who knows she's winning. Donald Trump Jr. is the guy who's going in there going, "I'm taking you out." Fuck you. You have trashed my family. You have said horrible things about my father and about my sister and about me and everybody else. Fuck a whole lot of you. And just got Whoopi Goldberg to have to go to commercial and call for the bailiff. It was awesome. It was the most beautiful thing I'd seen in a while. That's exactly what I would have done. I'm like, you fucking bitches have no goddamn business even holding my fucking dick. If I could imagine me on The View, it would be awesome. Like, no, I'm not listening to a word you bitches have to say. Like, no, go to commercial now because I'm not going to stop cursing. Like, no, Joy, no, you're not allowed to touch my dick. Fuck off. No. Like, you people are sick and venal and disgusting, and excuse me, I mean, think about it. Whoopi, you excuse pedophilia, you sick, twisted bitch. Like, what the fuck's wrong with you? Right. Do I follow the comings and goings of the White Helmets? Asked Semedjas. In Syria, I saw what happened to their co-founder today. The White Helmets are being liquidated so that nobody talks about what they did, what they did in Syria. That's all I have to say about that. That's pretty obvious. Jonathan, I have no idea how the election is going to turn out in terms of number of seats. I haven't done that analysis, and honestly, nobody has at this point, so stop asking. Military coup in Bolivia, country rich with lithium, which Evo Morales wanted to nationalize. Methinks this is China versus the U.S. going to be a civil war. That's an interesting observation, Dragon M. What happened to Bolivia is a fucking crime, and it's a sad thing that Morales, who's a socialist and all that, whatever, that doesn't matter. Bolivia is, it's irrelevant. In this world, when you have this whole socialism versus the right, the left versus right, they're all fake. It's all fake versions of. We have fake right-wing parties go in and privatize everything by implementing fascism and handing and doing privatization, which is nothing more than handing out state contracts to preferred dudes, to preferred companies that have the ear of the government, and we call that capitalism. And then, which it's not, it's corporatism, it's fascism. And then the socialists take over and renationalize everything, and then they go, and then we all return to growth, because at that point the fascist model, which has been strangling the economy to death, is so bad that improving things under socialism, even though everything still sucks, is now a savior. And then you get fucking horrible virtue signaling twats like Corbyn Sanders and the rest of them extolling the virtues of fucking socialism. It just makes me sick to my stomach. I mean, I have to read that shit on Fort Russ and all these other friggin' leftist alternative press sites, which are great at the information that they send out, but they're terrible at the political spin. I mean, even Strategic Culture, where I write, so many of the guys there are, so many of the people there are such fucking lefties, it just drives me up a freaking wall. Even RT is bad about this because they just don't get it. But whatever. Matt Australia asks the question, put another way, if the bankers run England, why would they push to remain? Because they have a huge interest in keeping open all of the way the best way to put it is this: City of London is an independent operator for all intents and purposes, and they want to remain because the EU is absolutely dead serious about trying to make Frankfurt into the center of European capital markets. And if the Brits leave, the threat has absolutely been that they will do that by making City of London based contracts illegal in the EU, and they'll move everything to Frankfurt. That's what the big worry is in City of London. That's why most of the bankers are for remaining. Moreover, they already have a sweetheart arrangement. They don't want it. They don't want that to change. Gabbard was just on Jimmy Dore. That's no surprise. El Vaquero says, "Hey Tom, I was supposed to be out deer hunting right now, but my U-joints went boom, and hey, Epstein didn't kill himself." No, he didn't. Macron has a hard-on says Stoyanovich, for the future EU without the British. He thinks that the British are the main reason that France isn't in control. He believes France will step up and lead economically and militarily. Well, that's what he's been told by his handlers and by the people who have influenced him. But he's out of his mind, and he's a weak leader. And once Merkel's off the scene, are you kidding? Macron is not going to be in power for much longer. The founder of the White Helmets, UK deep stater James Le Mesurier, apparently found dead, leaped off his balcony in Turkey today. Leapt? No. Leapt? No. How about was pushed? If you can't leave the EU, become a cancer for the EU. The Tories want to pretend they're all doing it by themselves. Exactly. The Tories are all about saving the Tories. Remember, they don't like being embarrassed the way they were at the European elections in May, where they got 9%. Okay? Well, Jonathan, no. The Tories will simply not campaign in the Midlands, letting the Brexit Party win the same way that the Republicans allowed Democrats to take the House last year. I don't know about that. That I don't think is a particularly strong argument. I think that there's going to be some Tories who have a conscience and who are Brexiteers will step aside to ensure that Brexit Party guys win. But it's not going to come from the party. Not going to come from Johnson. Festion says Grapes' firing was the first accomplishment of Trudeau's second 5-year plan. The View is trash. Joy Behar is a creature of her whims and emotion, no fact or logic. She's a dumb bitch. What's my comments on the alt-right trashing TP USA events? I could care less. That's a thing. Right. Tulsi isn't a Russian agent, but Joy Behar certainly is a Clinton agent. Moreover, did everybody see that Tulsi Gabbard has sued Hillary Clinton for defamation of character? I'm telling you. Stones. The woman also sued Google a couple of months ago for gaming search results. She's not fucking around here. Okay? She's not fucking around. This is exactly what she needs to be doing. Hillary doesn't get First Amendment protection because Tulsi Gabbard is a public figure. You make a claim like that, back it up with fucking facts or shut up, because otherwise that's libel. Certainly for a sitting member of the House. Can we name a species of pig after Meghan McCain? Sure. Go right ahead. I say stop or start it. No. The Gripers versus TPUSA. Nick Fuentes blocked me for associating him with the alt-right, but Nick Fuentes is alt-right. Stoyanovich, that's cruel to pigs. Yeah, I like pigs too much to make them to associate them with Meghan McCain. That's not fair. Jonathan, good point. What gives people like Joy Behar motivation in life? Tearing down everybody else. She lives in hell. She has no ideology. She has no meaning in her life. It's very obvious. Same thing with Whoopi Goldberg. And they tear down other people. That's what they do to their motivation is a fundamental hole in their core of their being, which which they can't fill with material wealth or with anything else. And it has to be, and the only thing that they can fill it with is they're being didactic jackasses and shouting everybody else down who disagrees with them, because they're so thoroughly dead inside that they can't handle any kind of actual disagreement with them. I would have my eyes clawed out by the end of that View segment. That's okay. I'm a brown belt in Taekwondo. I can fend off a bunch of 60-year-old cunts. It'll be fun. Bolivia's economy is doing well, and now it's not. Do they confuse liberalism with socialism? What do these words even mean anymore? Honestly. There's collectivism and there's individualism, and then everything else is just fucking words. Just words. That they use in a Orwellian sense to confuse everybody and keep everybody angry, pissed off, gaslit, and the rest of it. All right. Moving on. 42 minutes. EU nationals already run and stab all the investment banks in London, and they pay no tax, so they love it. There's another point by Daniel, going back to what someone asked about why earlier the City of London does not want Brexit. Tenjin says the White Helmets guy should have hanged himself with toilet paper sheets. Surefire method. I know. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, TPUSA is Charlie Kirk and Candace Owens. I mean, they're more Steve Bannon fake conservative bullshit. I have no patience for it. More interestingly is the fact that Vox, the Steve Bannon backed, or at least supposedly backed, center-right party in Spain doubled their vote total in Sunday's elections. That's very interesting. They now can't make... There's yet another Spanish election where they won't be able to put together a stable government. I love your nuanced opinion of Joy Behar. No, dude, seriously, the Behar. When people say something stupid, Behar. Drink on him. Tom Luongo on The View. Now that would be the show of the century. My bet's on Tom calling them all the C word live on TV. Oh, for that now. Just for you guys. Your thoughts on specified payments from the Grey Lady to the EU? You mean the New York Times? I didn't even see the story. Sorry. So, I don't know. There you go, guys. I don't really have much more to say about a lot of these things. Again, I don't have a lot of energy tonight. So, I think that, in, I don't say in closing, but to like put a bow on this, because we'll probably just, chat for another 15 minutes or so. I think Farage doesn't betray Brexit here. I think he's doing the best he can with a bad hand. And it was a smart thing to do. And it was a smart thing to do the big ask, frankly. Because without making the big ask, without really trying to put the fear of God into the Tories and forcing them into positions that they wouldn't have taken had he just handed them, an offer to start out with. You got to make things hard for politicians. They're never going to be. I think it was $10, Stephen Burnage. Do I owe you $10? Or did I not take that bet? I don't remember. So yeah, I guess we can talk about some other stuff. But yeah, just to put a bow on it, I think that that Farage does the right thing here. I think he comes out. Remember, he is one of the most controversial figures in British politics. And a lot of people don't like him personally. They like Brexit, but they don't like him. What's my opinion of Vox? Not really. They're better than something else. So yeah, we are all dealt a bad hands. This is a very wise Mark Bogosian. It all depends on how one plays it, and that's very true. I think Farage played the best hand he could here. So Liz is gonna like turn us in a different direction, and everybody can tune out now. Am I excited about Disney's streaming service starting tomorrow? Of course I am. Like The Mandalorian? Kidding? Me? Are you kidding? Of course I am. It looks really, really good. And everything that Dave Filoni has done vis-a-vis Star Wars, both Rebels and the Clone Wars. I haven't seen Resistance. I haven't had a chance. But both Rebels and the Clone Wars were just excellent. I mean, they were just excellent shows. And so him and Jon Favreau doing a Western man with no name kind of thing set in a post Dorothy Oz. This is the interesting part about The Mandalorian. It's an interesting why Jon Favreau, as an artist, chose this period. Not simply, he probably chose it because, hey, this would be cool. We haven't ever touched this area. But artists get there first, right? The back of their heads say, what are we doing here? They come up with ideas, and that idea probably clicked and was fed to his left brain, and he went, ooh, that's a great idea. Why? Because it's what is the area, what is the period of time right after episode 6, right after Return of the Jedi? It's no different than Oz after Dorothy fucks off back to Kansas. So, yes, Jon Favreau of Iron Man, Chef, Swingers, yeah, that guy. He's doing The Mandalorian. So interesting that we're going to get that for Star Wars. Because, remember, we live in a post-Dorothy Oz. That's my phrase. I get it, everybody. I get to own that one. That one's mine. Post-Dorothy Oz. That's where we are. Been using it for a year and a half now. Please spread it far and wide. I earned that one. And that post-Dorothy Oz is a very interesting place. It's the one where the institutional order is broken down. It's the beginning of that time where people are going to be fighting for control and no one knows what to do. And, and it's a very interesting and chaotic period. And what a shock that that Disney is going to, at the first long form Star Wars content outside of the trilogies of movies is about that period. Now, the sequel, episodes 7 through 9 are the real chaos period, where even the attempts where all of the attempts post Palpatine to install some kind of institutional order and control have failed completely. And we have the First Order, because the New Republic failed. Okay? We're going to get some of that filled in to make episodes 7 through 9 have a little bit more context and have a little bit more relevance to the rest of the movie. I think that this will be a very interesting part of the arc of this in the big story of this period in the Star Wars universe. I think it'll be very interesting to watch. And cast looks good. They spent, I think, 20 to 25 million an episode on this freaking thing. So they spent a couple $100 million. It's gonna be 8 episodes long. I mean, 8.5 hours of freaking content. Like, it's they crazy. You should play Star Wars Galaxies. I didn't play Star Wars Galaxies, and I can't go back that far in time. And no, after they destroyed the original Star Wars Galaxies before. I know that story. And that Star Wars Galaxies, the original one with the great crafting system, that one's gone. I didn't take the bet. I thought I didn't. And World of Warcraft is still really good, and it is still a Care Bear game compared to what was out at the time. I don't know that Iger's had enough of Kathleen Kennedy. I think that Iger has rightly made the call that Iger's the one who said, "Kathy, do all of this stuff. Let's spend this It's okay. There you go. You guys continue talking about Star Wars Galaxies on your own because that game is not good. So, what was I saying? I don't think that Iger's tired as Kathleen Kennedy, because I think it was Iger that told Kathleen Kennedy to go put out to give me a Star Wars movie a year. Okay. And then she did the best she could given the circumstances, and they were smart in how, and I think she was smart in how she went about it, which is that she gave a lot of latitude to a lot of young directors to try and make their imprint and find their voice within the Star Wars universe. I think that was the right way of going about it. We had a great thing on Quora one day about this. It's like the only subject I even care about in Quora. And the guy made a really great point. He said, if you want the best possible content from Star Wars, you don't hand them a canned script and like Kevin Feige does for Marvel and say, this is what you're going to do it, and dictate to them what they're going to do. You give them the opportunity you give them a blank canvas with some structure, but you give them a blank canvas to do what they want, because that's how you're going to get their best work out of them. Because artists work best when they're inspired to do great work and they're given the opportunity to put their individual imprint on it. And what that's going to mean is that sometimes they're going to go too far and then they have to be reined in. Gareth Edwards went too far. Colin Trevorrow needed to be fucking fired. Okay. Lord Miller went too far. Okay. And there was too much going on at Lucasfilm, not a company that's not used to producing that many movies in that short a period of time, to get all of it taken care of. Lucasfilm has always been a house that only worked on one movie for 3 years. Now they were working on 5 or 6 movies simultaneously. Different process, and they got ahead of themselves in terms of process management and all of that stuff. And I don't think that reflects badly on Kathleen Kennedy. I think, given what they've produced, I think it actually reflects very well on Kathy Kennedy that they've actually been able to get most of these things fixed, even if it cost them way more money than it should have. But it's Disney's own fault for pushing things too far too fast. And I think Iger is finally admitting that public, and Iger is taking a lot of the fault for that, and he should. I mean, everybody makes mistakes. Nobody is perfect. But I think it starts from the top and from the direction and then filters down, and then we can see where things go from there. I don't think there's anything wrong with what Kennedy has allowed into the Star Wars universe. I think Star Wars was way too male dominated in the 70s, and I think there's a little bit of an overreaction today, but I'm okay with that. We're getting the Mandalorian. Big freaking 6'4" Pedro Pascal as the big guy. 8 hours of content. Going to make a bigger impact, and giving Cassian Andor his own freaking series, going and doing Obi-Wan Kenobi. So we had a couple of movies with female leads. Now we're going to have some television shows with male leads. I'm okay with that. New Hampshire poll, Gabbard at 6%. She's going to be and Kamala Harris at 1%. Gabbard is going to win New Hampshire. Book it. You guys are talking about what happened in Ukraine. So the great Brett Harris was in the house, who reminds us, as Reckless Amanda, 7 employees of the National Bank of Ukraine detained in Kiev on suspicion of embezzlement of $48 million. Wow. Very cool. Only bank employees arrested by NABU, the national anti-banking, or the watchdog, the banking watchdog. It can be very interesting. So, all right. That's about it. I'll leave you with Jonathan's final point, which is that. Oh no, I'll actually leave you with this. The story with Danske Bank is big and interesting, and you're probably right. And it's all tied into Browder, and it's all tied into to Biden and the rest of them. We all know this. So, and it's going to play out, and I'm not sure how it's going to play out in the end, but we know that it's bad. Sandra Taylor asks this, the SD Taylor 2 asks, what's up with gold these past few weeks? Liquidity. Just that simple. We're going to gold is going to have to be, is going to go through, is going to have to go through one last shakeout on dollar liquidity issues, and then we'll see something else happen. Are you still talking about Farage? Not anymore. I talked about Farage for most of the first 35 minutes or so. Okay. Where is the tipping point when a Republican fingers Browder? Again, you're talking about like the third rail of American politics and British politics. And at this point, liquidity, yeah, it is. We are doing QE4, not QE4, QE4. Why do you think they're doing it? Because everybody's hoarding dollars. And there are going to be days when gold gets shellacked because they can. And there's no appetite to take gold any higher. And when markets can't go up, they go down. And when they can't go down, they go up. So, all right, guys. I'm just reading the comments now, and at this point, I'm like, not really sure what's going to go on. So, all right, you guys be good. This has been the Gold Goats and Guns Hour. A little fractured tonight, a little fractious. I don't think it's particularly interesting, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll talk soon. We'll talk after The Mandalorians come out, and I'm sure I'll talk about that on Friday. I'm sure we'll talk about a variety of other things as well between now and then that happen between now and then, because we can't go 3 days without ridiculously momentous things happening. As always, I do appreciate everybody's time, attention, and everything else. And go Nigel Farage. Go Brexit Party. Let's hope everything works out. You guys be well. You take care. We'll talk soon. Keep your stick on the ice.